Let me bring Elias right to the stage. He's joining us from the snowy Finland. That's what I hear. How are you doing this morning?
Uh, Hi, Evelina. Yeah, it's going great. It's just snowing a lot right now in Finland, and yeah, my I have a small baby, and he had to go to another room because he was supposed to go out during this conference, so he may not make noise, but it's snowing so much. So yeah, let's if you hear some baby, please, I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's totally fine. And your baby is all over Outlier's Instagram as well. So now everyone knows. Okay, are you ready to jump into the questions for the next 20 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Let's start with a few technical questions. So, one that appeared somewhere from the audience is something you touched upon a little bit, but let's see if you want to expand on it somehow. So, you mentioned very briefly the tools you use to make your visualizations, and someone was still wondering a little bit more on the how and why of the tools you used.
Yes, well, I like using these libraries like D3, and I'm getting a little bit into 3JS, WebGL, and I realized that some of them might not be like I mean, it's good to present and be analytical, but I want also to create this kind of uh, you know by creating these objects and showing them in 3D, it gets easier. So in that case, I decided to do it in that way, just rather than just showing line charts and bar charts everywhere. So yeah, talking a little bit more about the technologies and so on. I found a lot of inspiration coming from Observable, and
Hmm.
unfortunately, my work is a little bit, let's say, in private. But I will take time in the next weeks to collaborate also to this community.
Hmm. Okay, that's amazing. It's really nice that you were able to share this talk and show us a bit of the details, even though they're somewhat private within your company.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
next question is, someone is saying, sorry if I missed it, but how did you account for server energy, as in people downloading apps, connecting to online services like forums, etc.?
Yes, that's an interesting question. Most of our stuff is on the cloud. So basically, we divide the carbon footprint in many parts. So as I mentioned, it comes like there's all the energy used by our offices, the travels, and then everything that is related to IT. So that will come, especially will be coming more from the services we have. I don't have that information, but it should be like published somewhere in March, I think.
Hmm.
But the important thing here is that the device consumptions of our users. So, for example, at least Rovio has been compensating, but in the past they compensate, for example, the office and some other stuff. So the office consumption and the travels for 2020, it was a little bit below 400 tons. So that's not that much compared to the device consumptions emissions. And yeah, one other important thing is that there's some other people calculating from their side. So in my case, it was more about the devices, but for example, we had to calculate also the commuting of our employees, and that's quite difficult to do because people come by car, by train, and at this moment, not everyone is going to the office. So
Hmm.
had to do a survey to gather that information as well.
Okay, thanks so much for all those details.
Mhm.
What decision does your visualization tool help you make? Why do you need, for example, to select a group of countries and see how many flights that equates to?
Concerning about the project, it was basically I wanted to compare to different kind of situations. So I have the numbers of CO2 emissions in tons, like CO2 equivalent, and then I started to relate more with the, let's say, like what a citizen in a specific country consumes during a year. But yeah, it's quite open to think what will be more relative to us, what will make more sense. So I still trying to find what will be interesting to show. So as I said, if you have feedbacks that what will be interesting to compare, then I will be very grateful for to know as well.
Given all the chatter there on Sparkle, I do feel like an unconference session on your topic is coming. So I hope you have a bit more time today.
Yes.
Related to your visualizations, I think this question was asked when you were showing the big blocks to help us realize how impactful one event can be over another. Someone is wondering how many blocks for something like a Bezos Branson space tourist.
Okay, that's an interesting question. I'm. It might be that I don't have the numbers. That would be interesting to do. For example, then it could be something more open. Uh, yeah, maybe that's something to put in observable, but I have no idea. What I just want to be sure is that it won't, let's say, break your graphic cards or something like that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Have you used these materials of yours, as in have you presented them to the head of Rovio or some of your bosses, I think they mean, and have they started doing something to reduce emissions?
Well, it comes from a social responsibility team. This idea of compensating for our emissions, so it comes from them. But the first task I just had, it was just calculate please the device emissions of our users, and I realized that okay, that could be interesting to visualize, because previously I made in the lobby. We have in the lobby, we have a screen, and then we show like something similar, some earth going around, and then you see the live connections. But I think that's nothing meaningful, and I thought that okay, probably showing the missions could be more interesting. So that led me to create this visualization project. So it's not only just saying, hey, we're compensating this, but probably also show inside Robio, inside a company, that okay, these are the missions, and then we can know what does it mean as well.
Yeah, it's really good to hear that it's also coming from the company. Speaking of that, do you have any tips for someone who would like to convince their boss that they should reduce their carbon footprint?
Well, I didn't have to go through that, fortunately. But I think it goes in both ways. Companies should be responsible, uh, employees as well. So that's why I'm talking also about how to calculate your own carbon footprint, but that might be very difficult. So there are tools for that. Yeah, I think I think there's a good impact for the company as well to pledge or to name themselves as carbon neutral. So I think everyone wins. Everyone now wants to work for a responsible company. So I have not been through that, but it will be interesting to see okay, people that have managed to convince their bosses. Like yes.
Okay, another question I have from the chat is a very important one. So there's
Mhm,
a discussion was started by Sophia, who's also one of our speakers, saying that it
mhm.
could be a nice initiative for DVS members to calculate individual carbon footprint and have combined community a combined community portrait in that way. And someone actually suggested that we could add this to the DVS annual census survey. So the question is, would you like to drive it, this initiative?
Uh, I will be very glad. I will be actually when while I was doing the calculations, because that was the initial part. I realized that compared to other conferences that I might have seen, at least this conference has been all the time online, and I was thinking, okay, like if it was not online, how will be the carbon footprint?
Hmm.
How many people will have to travel from different places? And I'm glad. Well, I mean, sometimes it's nice to travel,
Hmm.
but it will be also good that if we have a physical conference, that okay, like let's also compensate, and also, for example, in my case, we cannot avoid traveling. I have family abroad,
Hmm.
but I just realized more with this project that okay, I have to, it has to really worth to travel and make the best of it. So yes,
Hmm.
that's a great initiative, and yeah, I would like to participate, and also if someone else want to participate, then yeah, let's do it. Yes.
So maybe you or someone else from the audience want to create a Slack channel on the topic. Because just a reminder, you're all allowed to create Slack channels, and then we can start a discussion going and maybe have an unconf on it sometime today. So we still have a
Mhm.
few minutes, so everyone feel free to add more questions in the chat, and I will pick them up. But I do have another one for you, Elias. So I'm wondering
Mhm.
how the work you do on this visualization work that you did on carbon emissions and the environmental impact, which is sort of very specific, are there any things that you learn or approaches that you picked up that was useful for you in other aspects of your work and could be useful um, for for the broader data visualization community?
Yes, I must say that I'm not expert about climate change. Many of you might know much more about it. I just realized that as a data-driven person, I think that's important metric to always have in mind. So many people measure their calories, how much they drink, how much they walk, uh, how much money they have. But I think our carbon footprint should be also a metric we should keep in mind. And I also understood that whenever action we do, we are using resources, and we have to be sure that okay, does this really worth? And if I have to do it, then okay, I it's good also to compensate it, because uh, yeah, it can be, it also feels good. I realized that I felt good after being more conscious, because
Hmm.
in the past, in my previous company, some previous company, there were business trip for whatever,
Hmm.
and now, like of course there's better technology as well, and we can have still good experience, and sometimes it's not that necessary to fly or to take other kind of
Hmm.
decisions that may affect. And so yeah, that's one of the things I have learned, and I would like in the future that that will be an important metric uh, in every project we run, or like it's always like some metric. It's like a KPI, that what do we call in data
Hmm.
analytics, that
Yeah.
something that should have its own weight. So
Hmm.
yes.
So, did you want
Yes.
to add something?
No, no, no.
I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit more about something else. Somewhere at the
Mhm.
beginning of your talk, when you started getting into the details, I think you had a mention that said, "Oh, this is like the boring methodology," and someone in the chat picked it up and said, "No, we actually really love hearing how it was calculated, what the methodology is, and how you describe it, because this is also one of the important things in data visualization, that especially when we transform the data or make calculations, it's really important to communicate it well and in a way that people will actually want to listen and read it. So do you maybe have any tips on that? So for example, inside your company, do you have I don't know, a document, a video recording, or anything that says, here's how I calculated it? Because I imagine that people have a lot of questions um, about the
Uh,
results.
yes, I was thinking that I could be more explicit with the calculations, and I can put it in some notes that might be available.
Yeah.
And it could be some kind of, because this is more oriented for let's say companies or organizations that have mobile apps, or so it is like if you will to compensate for the usage of your application, then it could be a good exercise. So you can apply also the calculations by yourself. And that this also works, for example, if you are a YouTuber and you have like a large audience. I think you can get the data and know like from which countries are your viewers, and if they are viewing on an iPad or a phone or computer. And you can do an estimation. Of course, it's always estimations at this point, but yeah, I think it's at the end it can be funny to do these calculations.
Hmm. Okay, very interesting. How do you approach your research for a new topic you want to visualize? So, for example, you mentioned that you're not an expert in climate change, but you still managed to make a data product that is very advanced. So what is your approach?
Uh, so I think I have to, as I said, I have to research a little bit more. But I was reading some report that it was interesting. I don't know if you can find around. I will put it as well. A friend gave me. It's a 1.5 degree lifestyles. So it
Hmm.
makes a full study of how if we keep continuing as we are. Uh, like the emissions will make our planet a little bit hotter,
Hmm.
and it fixes very let's say with numbers how much we have to change our lifestyle. So that will be a great topic, because for example it takes some countries as an example. And for example in Finland, we are like people in Finland, we travel a lot.
Hmm.
And probably that's something that we should change. Of course, there are other
Hmm.
factors, but housing. Okay, here we use a lot of heating because it's very
Cool.
cold.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
okay, we cannot do that much, but there are a few other things that we can improve, and yeah, that's something that will be interesting to go forward with it.
Hmm. Another question, a little bit on the design side of things, the design of data
Mhm.
visualizations. Since you come from different cultures or have lived in different cultures, so Peru, Finland, and probably maybe even more that we don't know about yet, how does your mixed background influence your design choices?
Uh, well, yeah, I have been for a while already in Finland, and yeah, in terms of design, I wouldn't say I mainly have let's say like from Finland. It's quite advanced in design, let's put it that way, or there's very good designers I get
Hmm.
inspiration from. And
You'll have to
well,
add the names in the talk notes for the
oh yes,
inspiration.
sure. Yes, but I wouldn't I wouldn't really know. I just know that Peru, it's in terms of design, I get more inspiration probably from nature or some colors. But yeah, I wouldn't say that much different. There's one thing that it's more related to this compensation topic. There's a difference between Peru and Finland, and it is that, for example, in Peru we don't use heating, or at least I haven't used heating when
Not
I
even
was
in
living
winter?
there.
There's no winter.
No. It's not that. It's not that cold, and also from my family, from friends, there are many people that have never traveled by plane. For example, the first
Hmm.
time I traveled by plane was when I was 18 years old. So I think the lifestyle is totally different what we have probably in Europe. So that's something I started to relate a lot when getting more into let's say calculating your carbon footprint, personal carbon.
Hmm. So this actually brings me to another question that I was thinking about while you were talking, since your topic is very universal, but you're also trying to approach or target very different audiences. As you say, in Finland, people travel a lot, and where you come from, maybe it's it's a whole different kind of a little bit of a different universe. So do you have any tips on how to target different audiences with the same visualization? Is it something you thought about when you created it?
Well, I think it's very oriented to people living where I live, or people that have same lifestyle. Let's put it that way. So I think the reality it changes in other countries, and probably I'm not focusing on that much on it. But yes, I will just say that. Anyway, concerning more people, let's say like that live in Europe and so on, there are things that there's a lot of things that can be done, and I know, for example, in Peru, we don't have that great transportation system, so it makes people like, okay, it's very important to have a car because without a
Yeah.
car, you cannot do that much. But in Finland, at least in Helsinki, where I live, we have great transportation. So, but it might just be okay. The idea is what I would like to point later is that okay, why having a car or why use a car all the time if you can just use the metro or tramways
The train, yeah.
or you can even walk if it's just on the corner. So yeah.
Okay. Well, we only have a bit less than a minute
Mhm.
left, so let's end with a bit of a technical question, or
Mhm.
maybe a short one. Is there a reason why you chose a 3D representation over a 2D one?
Uh, well, yes, if I would have chosen probably a 2D representation, and if I want to represent the blocks, then you get lost. Let's say representing the amount of blocks will be more difficult. So if you give a volume, then it's let's say it can fit in your screen, and also probably just using 2D, it will I will have included a lot of charts and bar charts and that kind of stuff. And probably there are some metrics I could not present here. So I just focus on okay, let's just focus on CO2 and try to find equivalents. So that's why it was my choice to use these blocks and have this idea of volume.
Okay, thank you so much for
Yes.
all those insights. That's all the time we have for the Q&A, so thank you so
Mm.
much for joining. Let's make sure we add all of this amazing information to the talk notes, and let's start a carbon emission discussion on Slack, and then later with all of the DVS members.
Yes, I'm looking forward it, and yeah, I think that's a great idea. Yes.
So thanks so much for joining, and see you around
Mhm.
for the rest of the talks. Bye.
See you. Bye bye.